This retired U-Haul box van is my home. It's a 2011 GMC Savannah 3500. I plan on driving this thing all over the western United States and someday up to Alaska. And I need it to be completely reliable and roadworthy to do so. Right now I have a shop with all of my tools and I'm kind of stuck here for the time being. So I'm going to do a complete mechanical overhaul to this thing. New wheels and tires, new brakes, all new suspension, steering, full tune-up, fluids, filters, everything. And before I place a huge order online and spend pretty much every penny that I got on parts, I need to inspect this thing. I need to crawl under it, take off all the wheels, look at everything, make sure I know exactly what I need, and then order the parts. And that's what this video is. I'm going to show you how to inspect your van mechanically, what to look for, and then I'll show you how I find the best deal online for auto parts. Going to start in the rear, work our way around to the front. The lug nuts on these are 7/8. Gonna jack it up now. This is a 3-ton floor jack. It's all steel. It's a cheap Harbor Freight one. I recommend at least a 3-ton for one of these big vans. I won't be bringing this jack with me because it's heavy. I will be shopping around for maybe one with off-road wheels on it. Lifting it up by the frame always. And if you don't have an impact, you can use a 4-way or a breaker bar or something. You can use the hubcap so you don't lose your lug nuts. I'll get you in here and show you what I'm looking at, and then we're going to take the brake caliper off and inspect the brakes. Okay, so on this U-Haul, it's got the heavy-duty load springs. It's just 3 massive leafs, and they hardly act as springs at all. They're pretty much just designed for heavy loads. And you can buy these online, and every picture of them shows a 2-inch block underneath. That way it maintains the same ride height as the standard van spring. And I noticed that mine does not have those blocks. And I think that's something that U-Haul does on purpose to get the van lower, so you have better loading, because they advertise like lowest deck height of any moving van, you know. But what we're mainly looking at here is the brakes. So I need to pop the caliper off. You can tell just by looking in there that there's still quite a bit of brake pad material. WD-40 is your best friend on pretty much everything. I mean, use whatever you prefer. A lot of people use PB Blaster, but I can't stand the smell of that crap. These bolts are 17 millimeter. I always do that. I give them kind of like a whack to break them loose. Just like that. And all these bolts do is they hold the caliper onto these sliding pins. And what I'm going to show you here is it's very important that these pins slide freely. Because if they don't, either your brakes are going to bind up and pull one way or the other, or you're going to have uneven pad wear. So now I'm inspecting the caliper. You just kind of look at these rubber seals that are around the pistons. You look at how rusty the pistons are. You check for cracks, rips, tears in the rubber. You check for leaks. Everything here looks pretty good, other than it being just kind of dirty and dry. On the back here, we're kind of inspecting the brake hose. And because somebody put split loom on it, it's actually in pretty good shape. We want to look at these brake hoses, look for cracks. There can be stress cracks right here around where the end of it is crimped on. Let's kind of take a look at that stuff. Look at your bleeder valves. If they are all chewed up and mangled, like somebody put vice grips on them, then you know that your brakes have been bled recently. You never want to let the caliper hang from the brake hose. It's not good for it. So we're just going to kind of set that right there and let it kind of balance precariously on the top of the leaf spring. So these are the slide pins. And this is just, it sits inside the bracket for the brake pads. And this is how the caliper can move freely. So when you press on your brakes, those pistons extend in there, and the caliper will actually pull one way or the other. And it has to move freely so you can have even wear on your brake pads. So every time I change brake pads, I take these pins out and I give them a good cleaning. And I always buy my brake cleaner and carb cleaner from Walmart because it's like $2 a can. If these are very rusty and kind of pitted, you either want to replace them, or if you have a bench grinder with the wire wheel on it, I tend to take these to that and clean them up real good. But if these are like chewed up or just rough looking at all, they're pretty cheap to replace. So that's a really important thing to just check and keep an eye on. And also these rubber bellows here, if they are torn, it can let dirt and corrosion and stuff get into your pins and mess them up. So the top one was nice and clean and in damn near new shape. This bottom one is a little bit worse looking, but it's still pretty good. This is totally fine, and I will reuse it. Next, we'll look at the pads. These are actually pretty good. I knew that. The brakes on this thing are pretty good. They're super thick. So really, I don't need to do, at least I know that this back passenger side brake is pretty good. I'll show you another thing to look for while we got this apart. Next, we're going to take off the brake caliper bracket, which is bigger than 17, probably 18 or 3/4 or something. Yep, it's an 18. Now, the bolts that I took off for the caliper itself, those don't need to be super tight. You want them good and snug, but they don't need to be like torqued, you know, because they're just bolting into this pin. These bolts right here is what holds the whole caliper and everything on. And these need to be pretty tight. I will need a bigger ratchet. So I've upgraded to a 1/2 inch kind of breaker bar style ratchet. Yeah, these bolts you don't want loose. Wow, that's on there. Here's something that pretty much every mechanic does. You take your breaker bar or ratchet and you slide a jack handle over it. Call that a cheater pipe. Basically, you're giving yourself more leverage. If you work on stuff a lot, you get a good feel for when a bolt's about to snap off. So make sure you got your knuckles positioned somewhere where you won't totally mutilate them. So one of the reasons I bought this van is because when I did go to buy it, I gave it a good visual inspection everywhere and a test drive. And all that I could find wrong with it is 2 of the tires were completely shot, and I moved those to the rear so the steering wheel wouldn't shake, and one of the power steering lines had a slow leak on it, which is pretty typical. And we're gonna look at those later, and I'll, describe that to you. But U-Haul, in my experience, does maintain their vehicles pretty well. I mean, these brake pads look brand new. So this is the caliper mounting bracket. They have these stainless steel little clips on them that the brake pads slide into. When you buy new brake pads, typically they come with these, and it just gives the brake pad a smooth surface to slide on. Otherwise, if you don't have that clip in there, the brake pad's just sitting on the cast iron piece that this bracket is, and they can kind of clatter around and move around. You don't want that. So when you do get new brake pads, they come with this clip. Replace the clip. The parking brake assembly is inside this hat of the rotor. There's basically 2 shoes like a drum brake. There's an access hole in the top. I'm gonna get some WD in it. Because it is kind of holding me up, I think. The rotor is not wanting to come off. If you plan on saving your rotor like I do, you don't want to bang on it with any sort of steel hammer. Here I've got what's called a dead blow. It's basically just a plastic hammer with sand in it. There we go. So here's your parking brake assembly. It's just 2 shoes like any drum brake, but there's no hydraulic like wheel cylinder in here. It's actuated by the cable, parking brake cable right there. I just lubed that up with some WD. And then there's an adjuster right here. It's supposed to adjust automatically. You pretty much set that when you do the brakes. These still have shoe on them. They look okay. And I don't see any like cracks in them. Now looking at the rotor, you just check the back side of it. That's where most of the braking happens, because as you hit the brakes, the pistons on the caliper push the rear pad on to the rotors. You want to check for grooves, like if you can take your fingernail and catch a groove like a record. And then at the very edges where the pad, outside of where the pad contacts, if you have a huge ridge, which I do not, then you want to at least get your rotors turned, which really nowadays is not even worth doing. Last time I got 2 rotors turned, it cost me $50. So if your rotors look bad, then just replace them. And if you need to do pads, if your pads are pretty much like worn to the backings, you should probably just do your rotors anyway. These are actually in really good shape. Even the inside where the parking brake is there's not a lot of rust or anything. So I'm just going to clean all of this up. I'm just going to hose it all down with brake cleaner and then put it all back together, basically. And grease up these slides really good. It is a good idea to put a little Loctite thread locker on these two bolts if you're unsure of your ability to get them tight enough to not come off. Another thing I didn't mention is you want to check for axle seal leaks when you're in here. Pretty easy to tell. You just, if you see a bunch of wet underneath the end of the axle, then you have an issue there. This was nice and dry, so I know we're good in that department. If you're not changing your pads, you want to put them back on the same way they came off. This one is the back, because you can see where the pistons were. This one's the front. You can just tell by the way that they look on the back side. You want to use disc brake grease to lube things up with. I'm just putting the tiniest little bit on these clippy-doos. You don't want a ton, you don't want it to get all over your rotor, because it'll stink and all of that. So if you're unsure of if your pads need to be replaced, like you think you might have enough still on there, look at this. This is the indicator clip. If the pad is close to where this clip extends out to, then you don't have very much time left before they start squealing. And that clip is there to tell you, hey, it's time to change your brakes. If you do change your brakes, before you go to put your caliper back on, you need to compress the pistons on it. I have a suspicion that I need to change my front brakes, so when I do that, I'll show you that process. This is a dual piston caliper, but you can use the same tool as a single piston caliper or a C-clamp. You don't need to use a tool, you just need the old brake pads and a clamp of some sort. And I am going to put the tiniest little bit of grease on here as well. Just a tiny little bit. It's good for the seals, and it just kind of helps keep your brakes nice and quiet. Now these you want to grease up a lot. Not a lot, but you want to give them a pretty healthy coating. This is the main sliding mechanism of your brakes. And you want to kind of spin it around so this rubber boot goes over the lip of the bracket where it's supposed to go. And these bolts you don't grease or put anything on. You just install them. And these slides actually have a flat part, and if you look at the caliper you can see that which way it's supposed to go. So those bolts, I got them like really snug where I know they won't come off, but I didn't like totally torque and crank on them. You can break those. They just need to be good and tight. Okay, this stuff here is called anti-seize. This is like the traditional gross sloppy way to apply it. I recently learned that you can buy it in like a little like lipstick looking thing. But if you put just a tiny little bit on each one of your studs before you put your lug nuts on, especially if you live in a place where winter time happens, it's a good way to just ensure that you'll get your lug nuts back off the next time. You always start your lug nuts by hand. Don't try to do it NASCAR style. And if they don't seem to be threading on right, if you go to screw them on and they start, you know, if it's fighting you, just stop. Because you can buy lug nuts anywhere. And if you quit while you're ahead, you can save yourself from having to replace a wheel stud. If you own this, it's called a torque wrench. This is a cheap, crappy, old school version, but there's nicer ones. You should always torque your lug nuts. These are 140 foot-pounds is what is required for these. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can just use like this, like a breaker bar, and just really make sure they're all in even tightness and just make sure they're good and tight. But what a torque wrench does, basically, it just tells you when to stop. You can make sure you do them all evenly. Like that. It does like a click. And you always go opposite. So if you do this one, then you do that one, then you do that one, then that one, then that one, that one, that one. You know, do like, don't go around in a circle, basically. also, it's a good idea if you just went on a really long road trip, or you just rotated your tires or had them off for any reason, after you drive for a while, you want to check that again, just to make sure they're still tight enough. Usually they are, but like if you've been traveling for a long time, you just get to camp, you're gonna be there for a week or two, you got time, just check your lug nuts. And everything else on your rig. Check your oil, check your tire pressures. And if you have these rims, you just hand tighten these on. You don't make those super tight. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side, and if I see anything I need to show you, I'll show you, and then we'll move on to something else. Okay, over here everything looked pretty good, but this lower slide pin does not turn on its own. Basically, it's seized. It's seized pretty good. And that's exactly what you don't want to see. So now I need to get that out of there and either replace it or clean it up and wire wheel all the rust off of it and stuff. This is stuck in here pretty good, and I got it to turn just a little, just with WD and a pair of channel locks, but it's gonna take heat to get it out of there. You can do this with a regular blowtorch, like a MAP gas torch or something. The best way to get stuff unstuck is to heat the surrounding metal, because steel expands when it's hot, and it don't take much. So what I'm going to do is use my channel locks to sort of keep turning on it while I heat. And when it gets loose, I'll be able to turn it freely or more easily, and then I can pull it out of there. And then we'll determine if we need a new one or not. Usually you can save them. They just get stuck from rust and dirt. And you want to be careful of this rubber boot here, this little bellow. Try to save on that too. Otherwise, you will be buying a new pin. I've got my torch turned like way down low. There we go. Yep, it's not pitted or really in horrible shape. It just needs to be cleaned up really good, as well as the inside of this hole. So while it's hot, I'm going to spray some flammable brake cleaner in it. I'm just kidding. WD-40 though. All that crap spewing out of there. So I'm going to let this cool down and then take it to my wire bench brush, clean it up real good, and then when this is cool, I'll spray it out with brake clean and the air compressor, and then we'll get a nice healthy coat of grease on it, and it should be good. There is some pitting, but it's salvageable. It's not too bad. I've gotten away with worse. Okay, so after inspecting the rear brakes, cleaning everything, greasing it all up, fixing that issue that I found, now I know that the rear brakes on my van are good and they don't need to be replaced. At least for another year, potentially 2 years. There's a lot of pad on there. And it's a good idea to, even if you don't need your brakes done, if you've never inspected them, or if it's been a couple years, take a Saturday or something and do what I just did, because you might find an issue like I did. And it helps to just clean everything and grease it up from time to time. Then you know if your brakes are good or not. Pretty much nobody does that. Okay, under here at the back of the van, we're just looking for any wet spots, like the front of the pinion seal on the differential, nice and dry. U-joints, what you want to look for here is any play in the U-joint. And for that, I'm going to grab a little pry bar. So you just kind of see if there's any movement inside the cap. So if you can get any movement out of either side of it, then your U-joint's wore out. And this one seems pretty good. Now these shocks are trash. They definitely need to be replaced. And I will be ordering shocks for this. I already picked out the ones that I want. The leaf springs I'm also replacing, along with the bolts on the front. And then I also ordered new shackles for the back. Because I'm replacing both leaf springs, I might as well do it all while I'm under here. And they were pretty inexpensive. Over here, I took a picture of this sticker, and I'm going to look up that part number so I can see which weight of gear oil I need for this. Either, 90 or 75, 140 or whatever. And what you can do is open this plug right here. This is the fill plug and inspection hole. You put a 3/8 ratchet in here. You remove that plug, and then you can kind of stick your finger in there and poke in, and if your finger gets wet with gear oil, you know it's full. If you can stick your finger in like this and you don't dunk it into any fluid, then your differential needs oil. I'm going to go ahead and take this whole cover off, clean this all out, and refill it with fresh oil and reseal this cover with a fresh gasket. And that will be in another video. I'm also going to look up the number on this axle right here. It's either a GM 14 bolt or it's a Dana 70, I believe, from what I've researched online. Typically the Dana's, it'll just actually say like a 70 on it somewhere, usually on the top of the differential up here. But it doesn't. It's kind of hard to see anything because this thing's so crusty. But I do intend on wire wheeling this whole thing and repainting it. Now over here we've got the brake lines. This has ABS, so each rear wheel has its own brake line running to the back. So we're going to just inspect them, and they look really good, especially for a vehicle that's been in the Midwest. Like up here, I haven't painted this yet, and that is nice and clean. If they look like the wreck of the Titanic, even if they don't leak, you probably want to replace them. And that doesn't mean it's nice like this everywhere. It could be crusty elsewhere. On the vans, we're going to inspect the whole frame under here and see if anything looks bad. I did this when I bought the van, so. Brake lines on the other side, looking just as good. That's the gas tank there. Another thing I want to mention to you guys, and I can't zoom out any further than this without turning off the light on my camera, but right here is the catalytic converters. And the box van, when they built these, there is the bottom of the box. There's the exhaust. There's no heat shield above the exhaust in the what is now my living quarters. So I bought some more of that reflective heat shield material like I put around my wood stove, and I'm going to be putting it under the van right here. And I'll make a video about that, but something I wanted to mention to everyone who's bought a U-Haul like this is your floor gets really hot if you've been driving around for a long time. So all right, now it's time to move up to the front. I'm going to jack this thing up, take both wheels off. Before I take the wheels off, I'm going to kind of shake them and move them around just to see what kind of play and excessive wear there is. And then we'll get a good look at these front brakes. I fully intend on replacing the ball joints and tie rods on this thing, but I'd just like to get a good visual inspection of everything underneath here. After that, I'll pop the hood and start looking at everything with the engine. Okay, so it's pretty good, and you won't be able to see this on camera, but there is some movement where there shouldn't be. So left to right, like the tie rods, feel pretty good. There's when you turn the wheels back and forth, when you go to switch directions, like from this way to that way, if you can feel play and movement, like a jerking motion before both wheels start turning back the other direction, then you know you've got play in your tie rods. And then to check your ball joints and wheel bearings and stuff, you go up and down with it. And it seems pretty tight, but when I go very gently on top of the wheel, there's the tiniest little bit of movement. Something's loose. My first guess would be upper ball joint. It's very possible that it could be the wheel bearing itself. These have a unit bearing in them, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And I do already intend on replacing the ball joints because I'm replacing the steering knuckles on this because I'm putting a lift on it. So this side does not have that movement, which makes sense because the passenger side is usually the side that gets beat up worse because, you know, you drive on the right-hand side and gutters and storm drains and potholes and stuff. But all right, so here's what you got. If you look at the top of the caliper, you can see both pads. There's the inner pad, there's the outer pad. They're both very thick, plenty of life left. If you get back here and kind of touch the back of the rotor, it's nice and smooth, no grooves. Rotors are nice and thick. Plenty of life left on these brakes. Here's the upper ball joint right here. And I do believe they do need to be replaced. Over here you've got your upper control arm bushings. They are a bit cracked and rotted, but just on the outsides. It's kind of a pain to replace these. I've done it. You have to really torch and basically burn them out of there and then press them out, press the new ones in. Lower control arm bushings, those look like really good. This is called the bump stop, and as the name implies, if you hit a hard enough bump, the lower control arm will come up and compress this thing. And basically it keeps your stuff from crashing into each other, keeps you from like blowing out your shocks and stuff. Coil springs look good. I probably won't replace them. And the shocks definitely need to be replaced. I will be replacing the shocks. Over here you've got your stabilizer bar, and then this is the end links. These are good, but it's such a cheap, easy to do part that I will be replacing them because I have to take them off anyway. And usually when you take these off, because it's just a really long bolt, a lot of times they'll just snap. Over here you've got your stabilizer bar bushings. It's just what mounts it to the frame. This bar basically just ties both lower control arms together on the vehicle. So it stabilizes basically. It just keeps it, it kind of just makes it where when you're going over rough terrain or bumps or anything, it'll kind of help just make the vehicle easier to control. This bar is flexible, it's actually hollow inside, and it, you know, can kind of flex and bend with the movement. Now here's your tie rods. That's called the outer tie rod. This is the inner tie rod, and it connects to the steering arm, steering linkage. And then this piece right up here is called the idler arm. It's basically just a pivot point that attaches to the frame. And then on the other side is what's called the pitman arm, which looks similar, but it attaches to the steering gearbox. So when you turn the wheel, it moves this bar left and right, pushes on these tie rods, and then they push on the steering knuckle, and that's what turns the wheel. So, and these are in really good shape. I honestly don't need to replace any of this. I am going to get the van aligned after I'm done working on it. And because I need to do that anyway, I'll probably replace all these components because they are actually not too expensive. But there's a little ball joint inside this, and there's a little ball joint inside that, and that's how that works. On older vehicles, both ends look like this, and then there's like a metal tube that they screw into called the adjusting sleeve. A little bit of damage right here. This is the ABS sensor. This rubbed on something at one point. It doesn't look like it damaged the actual wire though. It just kind of it got caught on something. And that's probably because this is supposed to be like secured into this bracket, and it's not. It's just flopping around freely. And then here on the steering knuckle, and I'll show you after I get these brakes off, but there's a unit bearing. It's a wheel bearing. It bolts on back here with these 4 bolts. It's this piece here. It's got an ABS sensor in it, wheel speed sensor. And we're going to check that by taking the brakes off and then turning it and feeling like for any grinding or looseness or anything like that. Over here on the driver's side, you can see that's what's missing. The clip that holds that ABS sensor. It's just a little clip. Looks like it just popped right out of there. Understandable how it would be missing. It, you know, could easily fall off at any point. Over here, the upper ball joint boot is dry rotted. It's a little bit worse looking than the other side. Over here, the brakes on the driver's side, just as fresh. And the back side of the rotor, at least from what I can tell right now, there's no grooves or ridges or anything on it. So yeah, this thing's got great brakes. It's pretty much mint. This whole van is mechanically in really good shape, other than the shocks and the rear leaf springs are shot, and the tires. And I know from when I bought it that one of the power steering lines kind of has a leak, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to pull these brakes off, take a look at them. The front brake removal procedure is exactly like the rear. The only difference is the slide pins are a one-piece design, so the bolt that holds the caliper on is the same as the slide pin. And they're both in really good shape. I'm just going to clean them up and re-grease them. The pads, brand new, and you can see DEL 422. These are AC Delco brakes. So very happy with that. Those are expensive brakes. Check this out. I hope the microphone's picking that up. These wheel bearings are shot. There's no play in it. They're nice and tight, but they make noise. So I need new wheel bearings or wheel hubs. It's a sealed unit bearing on these, and it's 4 bolts to remove it. They also kind of sit inside the steering knuckle, so it's difficult to get them out. Sometimes you really gotta like torch on them, but I'm replacing the knuckles. So I don't even have to remove these. I'm just gonna remove the knuckle, replace the ball joints, and install a brand new knuckle with bearing. So not only is the ABS wire kind of chewed up because the clip fell off, but the bearing is also bad. So, you know, I found that stuck pin in the rear brake on the driver's side, and now I discovered this. So I'm really happy that I did this mechanical inspection. So I'm figuring out what the van needs. And I'm also really happy that the van has pretty much brand new brakes on it. Over here on the driver's side, the bearing isn't bad, but it isn't perfect. It does have noise. And that's just an indication of the bearings themselves in there. The rollers are dry and potentially have dirt and stuff in them. So I will be replacing both. This and like shocks and springs and stuff, something you really, if you're doing one side, you want to do them both. Because if one's going out, the other one's soon to follow, you know. Save you from downtime, just do stuff in pairs. Brakes, just like the other side, they are in great shape. Back side of the rotor, it looks like it's grooved, but it's not. It's perfectly smooth all around. You can see how I put the caliper here. I kind of hooked it over the spring, so it's just resting there. It's not hanging by the hose. You never want to do that. Tie rod, nice and tight. One notable difference between the 3/4 and 1 ton vans versus the half is the upper and lower control arms are forged, where on the half tons, at least I know for sure on the trucks, the half tons, these are stamped steel. And then other differences, obviously, you have 8 lug wheels, you have a different transmission, different rear axle, different suspension and stuff. But yeah, same thing over here basically. Wheel bearing, ball joints, and I'm gonna do the tie rods even though they're not bad. But since I have to disconnect them, a lot of things like that, if you have to disconnect it, you might as well replace it, because sometimes you damage them or wear them out as you remove them and stuff. Like this nut and bolt, pretty rusty. So what you're supposed to do is get a little wrench around the top of that bolt and hold it still while you loosen that nut. And you get that nut off, then you beat that with a hammer till it falls out. But my odds of getting that off without turning this stud a lot and loosening up the joint are, you know, you might as well just replace it while you're in there. So I'm gonna clean these brakes up, lube them up. I'm putting grease on the little slide rail here, just a little bit of grease. Grease on the pins, cleaning the pins up real good, new grease on those. And then on the caliper, I'm cleaning these and then putting the tiniest little bit of grease on the edge of the piston and on the boot just to protect the rubber. So, okay, looking up underneath the van, there's a plastic shield that goes here, and mine is broken and missing. No big deal. But, so there's your sway bar, stabilizer bar, connects the 2 lower control arms. So you hit a bump on this side, it flexes this metal tube here and transfers that inertia into the other side, and it stabilizes the rig, so you don't lose control. And then looking up here, you have, this is the idler arm. It just bolts to the frame, and it's just a pivot point for the passenger side of the steering linkage, the center link, which is that right there. And then over here, this part is called the pitman arm, and it's just a splined, it attaches to the steering gearbox, and it's got splines on it. And then on the end of that is like a ball joint, which attaches to this steering center link. I'm actually kind of surprised that there's no steering damper on this. A lot of the trucks, like the old 3/4 ton Chevy trucks, the OBS ones, had a steering damper, which is basically a shock that attaches to this bar and then down to the frame, and it just you know, absorbs, it dampens the steering. But oh well, whatever. This right here is the steering cooler. It's just a tube basically, and you can see right here on where the hydraulic line connects, it's kind of greasy looking. That means there's just a tiny little bit of a leak on that, both sides. So I will be replacing that. It's a cheap enough part. I think it's like 20 something bucks. We'll see. I believe this is the airbag sensor. So if you get in a front end collision bad enough where it plows into that thing, it'll set your airbag off. Okay, so moving back, there's the oil pan we're looking at there. I just changed my oil, and I'll show you next time I do it. I'll make a video of that. I didn't think it was necessary at the time, but it might be something somebody would be interested in. Now looking up here, this is my steering pump, and that is a greasy mess. There's definitely some leakage going on there. And looking up, further up on it, up by where the pulley is, it's wet up there. That tells me that the seals in the pump are bad. So I might buy just a whole new steering pump, as well as all the steering lines for this. That was kind of, that's the one thing I did see when I bought the van, is that there was steering lines leaking. So that's what I'll do. So we'll give it all new, basically all new steering all around. Everything else looks pretty good. That is a Gates AC belt. I was going to buy a new AC belt, but that actually looks pretty good. And then the serpentine belt, I probably will just replace that. That looks like a heavy duty model. I mean, this thing has been pretty well maintained. I'm pretty impressed. I'm almost bragging at this point about it, but U-Haul did a good job taking care of this thing. So that's kind of a good reason to purchase from them, you know. Yeah, they get beat up by the customer, but they get maintained. So now moving on back here. So these are the transmission cooler lines. They run up to the radiator. No leaks, looking good. Transmission pan, no leaks. I am going to do a transmission service though, so that pan will be getting dropped and a new filter and gasket put in there. You will see that in a video. These are the fuel lines up here. There is a vapor catch canister there. It's an emissions thing. That all looks good. There's no leakage going on with any of that. Everything from this point back we've already inspected. One last thing, come back here to the output shaft of the transmission, and it's bone dry, which means we have no leaks on the transmission, which is great. And these are the U-joints. This is something that everyone with the Chevy van needs to know about. The shift cable. There's a little plastic bushing on this, and it breaks. And it's a very common issue with these. Almost every U-Haul, I think this one's had it done. If you look at the service history, it'll say something about shift cable. There's a little plastic bushing on these that just gets brittle and cracks, and then your shift rod pops off. And it's really easy to fix that. They sell them in a 2-pack, and I will show you the part number because I did it to my friend's van, and yeah, I saved the other one out of the 2-pack. So you can get them literally off the shelf at any parts store. Up here on the exhaust, that's the oxygen sensor. I replace these a lot on my vehicles just for, you get better gas mileage and they run better if you have a nice fresh O2 sensor in there. I'm not going to do that on these. The van runs perfect. There's really no reason to do that. If you look up here, I mean, that's the engine block. Look how clean that thing is. It looks freaking brand new. I mean, this is a clean van. Yeah, you need a special oil filter wrench for these because they sit in this like recessed portion of the oil pan. So you get a oil filter cup wrench that fits on the bottom of these as opposed to a strap wrench. You can get a strap wrench on there, but the cup ones work a lot better. And that's a PF48E. You can get a bigger, higher capacity filter. But yeah, that's the like OE filter. It's PF48. So after looking at my shift cable, I'm pretty sure it's been replaced with the revised style because it has like a little bolt and a nut on the end. But my friend's van was different, and if that hasn't been replaced, then here's what you need. This is the Dorman 14092, the Dorman Help accessory. And you get these just right on the shelf in the auto parts store. And it's this little plastic bushing that goes on the end of the shift cable. So there's like a little stud that comes out of the transmission with the little ball on it. And then the shift cable is a loop. And then this little bushing goes in there. And then you just push the shift cable onto that stud and it snaps on. So if your shift cable comes off, you can't get into park, or something, what you want to do is, like, first you want to just go buy one of these and just keep it in your glove box. And then if that happens, hit your e-brake, like your parking brake, shut the van off, get under there, and then grab the shift lever on the transmission and push it forward all the way to the front of the vehicle. That'll get you back into park, and then you can install this little clippy-do and hook your shift cable back up. Every Chevy van, I believe, every Chevy Express and Savannah, this was a common issue. It's just a little plastic part and it gets brittle, and it just crumbles off of there, and then your shift cable falls off. It's not a GM thing either. It happens to a lot of vehicles. The newer Ford Escapes do that too. So, and then this here is the oil filter wrench that I use for LS motors. It's just a cup, and then you put your 3/8 ratchet on it, and you can do a wrench too, but it just goes on the bottom of the oil filter, and then you can get it off that way. And that's, for me at least, that's been the easiest one to use for these motors, because the oil pan wraps around that filter. Yeah, so here's under my friend's van. I just crawled out here just to show you the difference. But that plastic clip just goes in there, kind of connects the shift lever to the shift cable. So, alright, so now I'm going to inspect everything under the hood, and then order some parts. To get full access to the engine, you just remove your air box, your overflow tank, the top half of the radiator shroud, and the doghouse inside. It's real easy to do. I think I showed it in the video where I replaced the brake booster on my friend's van. But it's basically like 9 10mm bolts and then like 4 clips on the doghouse. Air filter don't look too bad. I'm gonna replace it anyway. Cheap enough. Alright, now we got full access to the engine. Alright, so this serpentine belt is like freaking brand new. This thing's in great shape. I'm not going to replace it. I might buy one just to have, but you know, there's a misconception that these need to be replaced all the time. I have a 99 Grand Prix with the original belt still on it. You just just visually inspect the condition of it, you know. This idler pulley, however, you can tell by the way that it looks that it needs to be replaced. And then, see that? How there's play in it. So I'm going to add that to the list. Yeah, definitely need an idler pulley. This is the 145 amp alternator. I'm going to see if this is enough for my 40 amp DC to DC charger, and if not, I will upgrade to a 250 amp. But there's like a 105 and a 145, and depending on which van you have, this is the 145 amp, the bigger one. If you have an ambulance, those have like $1,000 alternators in them. They make like up to like 500 amp alternators that you can get for these things, the Delco Remis. Upper radiator hose, you see where the clip was? You see how the hose is dented in right there? That means that this rubber is starting to swell out and wear out. So I'm going to go ahead and replace both radiator hoses. This radiator, it looks like brand new. I don't remember if that was on the service record from U-Haul. I should have printed that out, but this looks like a new radiator. It's super clean. So that's good news. These radiators are kind of expensive, actually. They make aftermarket, like thicker aluminum ones for it. But the van stays nice and cool. I've had no issues at all. Yeah, this lower one kind of looks a little swollen too, so I'm gonna go ahead and do both radiator hoses, the idler pulley for sure, tensioner pulley. What I think I'll do here is I'll remove the belt and then spin these pulleys, and that'll give me a good indication of if any of them need replaced. Heater hoses actually look pretty good. They're not swollen or anything, so I'll go ahead and leave those alone. This battery is really good, but I might replace it anyway. It is a interstate, but I'll have to look and see if I can find a date on it anywhere. I have a Costco membership. That's where I get all my batteries from, which are also interstates, but they're kind of like a cheap economy version. And this is a good one. It's been pretty solid so far. So this is group size 78 right there. I will be replacing the battery cables. I hate these GM side posts. I already replaced the bolts on mine, but I'll be upgrading these now that I have the tools to do so. Throttle body, I'm gonna clean it. It's just dirty. See? I'm just gonna basically spray it out with some carb cleaner and wipe it with a rag. I don't intend on removing the why is that wet? That might be from me flinging the overflow around. I don't intend on removing the intake because there's no reason to, unless I find something around the gaskets that look like they're leaking, but I don't think they are. This is the stupid little fuel economy gauge that's on the U-Haul, and they put a T on there. I'll show you on the back side. They just basically spliced a little T into the vacuum hose for the plenum vacuum, which, there you go. You see that? This vacuum hose is dry rotted, so We're going to replace, oh, it just popped off of there too. We're going to replace the vacuum lines. Oh yeah, that's super loose. That's a vacuum leak. So yeah, we got to replace that. And that goes down. Oh yeah, look how bad a condition that is. I could probably tear that in half with my hand. So I'm going to replace that today, actually, and just get rid of this fuel economy vacuum gauge because it's stupid. The coils, I believe this is the square type. I'll cross-reference the part number when we get online here in a minute to order parts. But I'm going to go ahead and just buy one spare coil. So if I do develop a misfire at any point, I can just field fix it right there wherever I'm camped. I am going to get new plug wires just because they're cheap and readily available. But these all are actually in pretty good shape. These are AC Delco 5146s. But LS is coil on plug. Well, not on the plug, but you know, each spark plug has its own coil. There's a crank and a cam sensor that tells the computer exactly when to fire each plug. It's the most efficient form of multi-port fuel injection. There's an injector for each cylinder as well. Yeah, this engine is freaking clean. I mean, maybe a little bit of some valve cover leakage going on right there. I could change the gasket. Yep, it is kind of just starting to leak. Or just tighten up the bolt. Yeah, actually, I can see, I don't know if that's showing on camera, but when I push on it, it's just loose. I can tighten up this valve cover, probably fix that. Same on the other side. You see a little bit of, yep. I'll just tighten my valve covers up a little, and then if I need to, I'll put gaskets on it. It'd be kind of fun, I guess, to see what it looks like under there. L20. That is the engine. It's 2011. This is the oil pressure sending unit. Just, I don't think, I do have an oil pressure gauge, yep. These develop leaks a lot. Super easy to get to. Having the doghouse in the back makes it just that much easier to get to everything, as opposed to the traditional, like in a truck, where you just got a hood. Yeah, and this all looks, I mean, this engine's clean. It's in great shape. I mean, the exhaust gaskets still look frickin' new on it. It's got a, we're up to, I think, 125 now. It had 123 when I bought it. This is the Valley pan. It just seals that area between the heads where the lifters and stuff are. The intake manifold on an LS does not have coolant running through it. There's a crossover pipe in the front to transfer the coolant between the two heads. So this Valley pan is just sealing oil, and there's NOx sensors in it as well. I am going to replace my plugs. I really don't need to do these wires at all. They're in great shape. What you want to look for is like down here mostly, where all the heat is. You just want to kind of look at that. I'm definitely doing plugs though. Well, this is interesting. I just traced that vacuum line and found this. That is some redneck backyard mechanic bullcrap right there. It kind of goes around the firewall over here, There's another T, which runs down to, I don't know where that's going, honestly, climate control or something. And then they just cap this off. I'm gonna try to figure out exactly where this is supposed to go. That's, yeah. U-Haul employee did that. The fact that it has AC Delco brakes on it tells me that they were getting it serviced at a dealership, I would assume, because a dealership is only allowed to use factory parts. But all right, so typically there's a sticker that says the vacuum routing. We got belt routing, which is nice. A lot of cars don't even give you that nowadays. But there is no sticker for belt or for vacuum routing. It just kind of shows you general information, and in the Haynes manual it says look for the sticker. But it was pretty obvious where this goes. Just looked in the general vicinity. There's this ball right here, and there's a little port coming off of it right there. So what I'm going to do is replace this whole vacuum line from there all the way up to the engine. We've got our little T right here for, I'm assuming, climate control. So it'll be just like 2 pieces, and I'll bypass that dumb fuel gauge or fuel economy gauge, and that'll be fixed. And you know what? Next step is to remove this belt, check my pulleys, take a good look at the water pump, make sure there's no seepage going on there. I did do a water pump on my friend's van, and I didn't film it. I should have. I did lots of work to my friend's van and didn't film any of it, and should have. But if I ever have to do that, I will. But mine, I think, is good to go. So I'm gonna fix that vacuum line real quick, check these pulleys, and then we'll order some parts. All right, I didn't have any vacuum hose. I'm all out. But looking at it, it's 7/32 is the size. And I had some 1/4-inch vinyl, so I just temporarily put this on here, and then I zip tied it up to get it away from the exhaust. Vinyl tubing can't handle the heat of like being under hood in a vehicle, but this is like way better than that totally disintegrated rotten hose that was there. So this will get me by until I pick up some of the proper stuff, and then I'll replace it with that then. To loosen up your serpentine belt and take it off, you put a 15mm on the tensioner pulley, and then you just crank it down like that. That's all there is to it. You can use a wrench and then hook 2 wrenches together to get the leverage, or I just use a long-handled ratchet. But that's all there is to it. It's a 15. Yeah, so idler pulley, loose and wiggly. It spins nice and quiet. No, it don't. Yep, loose and wiggly. And then the tensioner pulley, also loose and wiggly. These just have a simple little sealed bearing in them, ball bearing, and they're cheap enough to replace. So when I loosened the belt up, this spring on the tensioner felt good. It snapped back on its own and stuff. So depending on the price of the pulley versus the tensioner, I'll probably just replace the pulley. Thermostat's right there. If you ever need to change it, pop off the lower radiator hose. Pretty, the cooling system on the LS is good and refined compared to like any traditional older motor. Thermostat's on the lower hose versus the upper, so you don't get any like air pockets on that. This is the coolant crossover pipe right here between the 2 cylinder heads, and then there is a bleed hose right here that goes up to just below the radiator cap. So with this setup, you can actually just fill the radiator after you've serviced something like a water pump or something and just let her roll. You don't have to sit there and bleed air out of it like a traditional car. And yeah, it's a pretty good setup. And the water pumps they're O-ringed. They're 2 O-ringed gaskets that I kind of think my upper radiator hose is leaking, actually. Unless I just flung coolant at it earlier. But I'm going to be replacing both radiator hoses, both of those pulleys. Water pump, there's no play that I can tell in the pulley. AC clutch, I don't feel any grinding or crunchiness in that, so that's good. One thing I did find is right here. I believe that's transmission cooler line. There's transmission cooler on this side, these 2 pipes, and then over here on this side, that's oil cooler for the engine. And they're a little sweaty, a little greasy around all the connections on them. There's O-rings in those, so I might get in there and change them O-rings. But it's just those rings. It's not. I don't need whole new lines. The lines seem fine. So I think at this point I've got a pretty good list. Alternator seems fine. Bearings on it are good. That squeaking is the motor, not the bearing. The electric generator in there. I look significantly dirtier now because I just washed the engine bay. I figured I'm in there, might as well, you know. So when it comes to buying car parts, if you're a nomad and you break down somewhere and you don't have a home base, or you're 2,000 miles away, you know, pretty much your only option is to buy locally from a parts store if you do your own work. And no matter where you go, you're gonna pay way too much. Sadly, that's just how it is. When it comes to the big 3, you know, O'Reilly is my favorite. At least in my experience, you're gonna probably get the right part. The guy working there might know what the heck he's doing. There's been some pretty comical exchanges between me and parts store guys, but I try to buy online as often as I can, pretty much every time if possible. Like if it's something that can wait, then I'll get my part online. This is gonna sound weird coming from me, but do not buy car parts on Amazon. You are guaranteed to get the wrong damn part. Their website is just not, their like search inquiry and their vehicle lookup is just not refined to the point where you're gonna get the right part. Also, there's a lot of really sketchy sellers on Amazon. Same with eBay, but eBay Motors, you do have a much better chance of getting the correct part for your vehicle. Now for the last several years, like I'm talking like for the last probably over a decade at least, I've been exclusively buying almost all of my car parts from Rock Auto. And every time you order something from Rock Auto, you get a fridge magnet. And I have over 100 of those magnets. I'm not affiliated with them at all. I did actually email them and said, hey, I'm about to make a video on YouTube pretty much showcasing your website. How about a discount code for my viewers? And they pretty much told me to screw off. So I'm gonna order everything for this van from Rock Auto. The only thing about Rock Auto is you pay for shipping, but you can get some pretty damn good deals. And I'm gonna show you everything I'm about to buy for this van and kind of explain the thought process of ordering on that website, and kind of what to look for. If you're only getting like one thing, if you're not ordering a huge, like a full tune-up for something, if you just want to get like one item, say you just need like a starter, you can get on Rock Auto, look up the part number of any like common brand, and then you can copy and paste that part number over into eBay Motors. Try to find the same thing but with free shipping. I've done that in the past. But if you're getting a whole bunch of stuff, then it kind of makes it worth it to pay for that shipping, because even with shipping, you generally pay less than you would over on eBay or something, because a lot of the free shipping is they just up the cost of the item to cover that anyway. So alright, here's my Rock Auto cart. I just added everything to it. So we have rear shocks. These are extended length shocks. They're not actually, like, they don't fit this van, but they will work when I put a lift on it. They're the Monroe 911044. They offer greater stability for vehicles with the high center of gravity, and they're longer, so they'll work with the lift. I found these Moog wheel bearings at wholesale closeout for $58.99 each, which is like half off. I got a Wix air filter. I got AC Delco idler pulley for the belt. I got AC Delco iridium plugs. I kind of splurged on the plugs because I wanted good ones that'll last me a couple years. Power steering pressure hoses. I've got these Edelman ones, the two pressure hoses, and then down here we got idler arm, pitman arm, and all of the steering and suspension stuff like ball joints and crap. I'm doing this Dorman Rugged Duty. It's pretty cool looking. It's got red bushings and stuff, but they are listed as like heavy duty in the catalog, so they should last me a while. I went with the remanufactured steering pump. It does have a core charge. I don't know if I need to ship my old one back to them, but I'll try to do that unless I have to pay a bunch for shipping. But $93.79 if I don't ship the old one back. Tie rod ends, inner, outer, same thing, Dorman Rugged Duty. These are the front shocks. I just got the same brand and like line, the Monroe Reflex, and sway bar end links, Dorman Rugged Duty. Here's my transmission service. It's pan gasket and filter. Wiper blades. I got the beam style. Rock Auto is the cheapest place to buy wipers. The wipers on the van are actually really good, so I might buy these and just keep them in their box, in their package, and then when my wipers start to suck, I'll change them then. I am going to go ahead and get a serpentine belt. The one that's on there don't look too bad, but it is kind of like stiff. So I'm going to get this Gates Fleet Runner heavy duty with 145 amp alternator. I guess there's a difference in the pulley size. This is the upper radiator hose, and this is the lower radiator hose. Again, I found wholesale closeout, so they're like half off. Not too bad. There's the ball joints, lower, upper, 2 of each. These are my U-bolts, because I'm putting new leaf springs on it. I already bought the springs. This is the power steering return hose / cooler. Going with the Dorman on that. And then for the tensioner, I'm going with this Gates with the steel pulley. Improved design, should last forever. And then these are my rear lift blocks. So I'm doing a 3-inch lift in the front, 2 in the rear with new springs. And when you go down to how did you hear about us, you put in a code. What I did just now is I got on Reddit and looked up, it's Reddit/Rock Auto, and just searched for discount code, put that in. I have a discount code in my email, but it just expired. So after you place an order, they'll send you a 5% off discount code. But if you don't use it in time, it expires. So you just get online and search for it in a forum or something. Don't click on any of those like coupon or discount websites. You got to find a forum. So either Reddit, or there's like a Jeep forum that usually always does that too. But when you shop on Rock Auto, here's how you do it. You pick your make first, so GMC. Then you pick your year. It'll narrow, after you pick make, it'll show you all the years of GMC that they have. So 2025, and then it goes all the way down to 1935. We could get a T16L 3.5 inline 6, and they have apparently speaker brackets and stuff for the distributor. You can put some points on it. But so 2011 Savannah 3500 4.8, and then they give you all the categories of stuff that you can shop for. So for example, wheel hub, wheel bearing and hub, economy. So they list them by like kind of cheap, less than OE quality, but gonna work, standard replacement, or heavy duty. This Mevotech, I've used this brand before. Their wheel hubs are very good. They're nice. But I went ahead, because that's $124.79 for that. I went ahead and got the Moog wholesale closeout, which is like almost half off, for $58.99 a piece. And that'll do just fine. And if you see these little truck icons next to a part, that means it ships from the same warehouse as something you already have in your shopping cart. So you can save money that way. But if it's like the part costs more to get that cheaper shipping, you can kind of compare. After you put in your address, it'll give you a shipping quote, and then you can kind of play around with it, pick different parts, and see like what's going to be a better deal in the long run. So yeah, I already I picked all these parts and was filming a video, and then I hit the wrong button on my laptop and it just deleted everything, so I had to start all over. But you just pick a category, cooling system. Say we needed a radiator, then you can see economy, wholesale closeout right there, $102. That's a pretty damn good deal for a radiator. Because locally, because my friend's van needed a radiator, here's GM genuine cutaway van, $335.99. That's even cheaper than what my friend had to pay at, I think it was O'Reilly locally. O'Reilly and AutoZone quoted us the same price, but it was like over $400 locally. So another example here. We'll go to brakes. We'll do where are we at here? Rotor and brake pad kit. So you have daily driver. There's a lot of options on here for the rear. So you got single rear axle, and then there's 2 rear disc sizes on these, 86 and 91. So when you go to order rear brakes, I don't need them, luckily, because I just saved myself like $200. But measure your rotors, yeah. And with brakes, there's all kinds of different. There's coated, there's semi-metallic and ceramic pads. Ceramic lasts longer, but they tear up the rotors a little harder. So your pads will wear down less, but you'll dig through your rotors a lot, which really nowadays doesn't matter because it's not really worth it to resurface your rotors anymore. They charge like $50 to resurface a set of rotors these days. But semi-metallics are quieter, and like they won't squeal, especially when it rains, but they wear out a little faster, and they leave brake dust on your rims. So ceramic's the way to go. So if you go to brake pad, there's like a ton of stuff. Economy, all these choices. Daily driver, tons of options. Tons of options. Heavy duty, that's long life truck and tow. It's kind of what you would want on one of these vans because they're heavy and you know you're going to be driving the crap out of them. And then there's premium. That just, I don't know, they're just fancier, I guess. High performance, better stopping power. Like here's police, you know. I don't know if there's any cop vans, but there's yeah, all kinds of. Rock Auto has a pretty damn good selection of stuff, but really the best thing about it is you're pretty much guaranteed that the part is actually made for your vehicle. And that's the biggest problem with like Amazon and stuff, is it's kind of like you're really gambling with whether or not that's actually going to fit your vehicle. So, and then you go to cart, and yeah, that's how it's done. Alright, so I'm gonna spend pretty much every penny I got on Rock Auto today and buy every single thing that the van needs mechanically. And by doing that inspection, taking all the wheels off, going through the entire van, checking it all out, I found some major issues. I needed wheel bearings, front wheel hubs. My rear caliper pin was seized. I found that janky vacuum hose on there, and the steering pump's leaking like a sieve. So now I know. After I get all these parts, there's going to be several videos of me installing that stuff and getting the van 100% mechanically perfect so I can drive all over the country. And I am going up to Alaska in like a year or two with this thing. And then after I get more money, I'm going to buy tires to put on those sweet rims that I bought. And then the van is going to look pretty cool. So yeah, I'm working on my gray tank too. So the next video you're going to see is going to be probably that, finishing the plumbing. I would like to thank my new Patreons since my video where I did the shower. Diego, Why Not, Adventures with Super Dave, and Josh. Thank you for joining my Patreon. I appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who's donated with the super thanks button. I appreciate that. My filming schedule is like kind of erratic now because I went part-time at my job, so it's not just cut and paste like it has been. So I might have to start just listing my Patreon supporters like everyone else does, without like saying it, because when the videos are going to be on YouTube's like way out from when I film them. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for all your support last Saturday when I just made a kind of a fishing video. I appreciate all of your kind words and understanding about just the fact that I put up a video that wasn't a van build. One guy left a very, very mean comment about it, and he got banned. I was just like, wow, really? But all the rest of you guys who you support me, and I appreciate that. So Wednesday videos, I'm going to try to have those every week for now on. I'm trying to really focus on my YouTube channel. Like I said, I am really trying to get this van done and just make more videos. And by now, I should have been able to successfully have done a live stream on YouTube. It was pretty obvious how to do it, and then it just didn't even work. So I was very disappointed about that, and I had like 90 of you guys were like tuned in and ready to go for that, and I felt like a jerk for the fact that it didn't work. It was kind of embarrassing. Pretty disappointed with YouTube over that one. You know, YouTube's like a bazillion-dollar industry. It's like Google's flagship product, and didn't even work. Using Google Chrome as the browser and YouTube Studio as the place to do it from did not work, and I learned a lot. Apparently you have to have third-party software to live stream on YouTube. You know, stuff I need to figure out if I want to be a YouTuber and do lives and do all of this successfully. So thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. If you have a Chevy van, I'm just trying to help everyone out. I'm no expert. I'm not a professional mechanic. I have been working on vehicles since I was like 12. So I learned a thing or two over the years. So let me know in the comments what you thought about this one, and if you have any questions or suggestions for me. And I'm going to get these parts ordered, and then I'm going to make videos about me replacing these parts, and we'll do it together. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great week, and I will see you on Wednesday.